Beautiful is this dress? I mean, I just said I have to recreate this dress, so I wore mine to church and people gave me lots of compliments. They were like, are you sure you sew this dress? Like, this dress is looking like as if it's already made. Like, did you sew it? I was like, yes, I did sew it. So this dress is so beautiful. I was even feeling myself when I was wearing this dress. So this video, I'm going to be giving you showing you a detailed tutorial on how to make this dress, so just keep watching. So I went ahead to measure out my shoulder. My shoulder measurement was 11. When you open it, it's 22. The shoulder is a wide shoulder, so that was why it was 22 inches. That is 11. The next thing I measured was my neck width. My neck width was 3 and 3 inches as always. I then went ahead to mark my neck width. It's going to represent for both for the front and the back. I then came down by 7 inches, and 7 inches will represent where my bust is starting from, guys. That is where my bust is going to be starting from. That meaning that's my bust point. So I marked 7 inches all around the area, and I'm just going to name it as what my bust point, which is BP. I write it as BP. Then the next thing I just did was to measure out my neck depth for the front. So for the front, the neck depth I'm using is 3 inches, and then I'm just going to form a round neck, a circle neck by this. I connected it with the neck depth, as you can see. Then for the back, I measured out 1 inches. You guys can see I measured out 1 inches. That's the back depth. The neck depth for the back is 1 inches, guys. So that is what I just did here. So after doing all that, I'm just going to go on to measure the circumference of my bust, and the circumference of my bust was giving me 8 inches, right? It was giving me 8 inches, and then I measured out my waist circumference. My waist circumference is 7 inches, so I went to the bottom part. Remember, this is the half length we are cutting, so I then connected it with the bust circumference. You guys can see it formed a slanted line. The next thing I'm just going to do is going to add my allowance and your allowance, if you are doing this, should be about 2 to 3 inches. It's perfectly fine for that. So this is my allowance that I added. So for my main measurement, I came out by 1.5 inches at my bust point. You guys can see, and I'm just going to connect it with my shoulder area, and this is forming what our sleeve. This is going to form our sleeve. You know, it's slanted, it's not straight. So that was what I just did. You guys can see the slanted line that it formed over this area. So this is what I did right here. And then after cutting it, this is what it's looking like. I already went ahead to cut out the area. The next thing I did was to open up my zipper allowance area for the back. So I just teared it open. I place my main fabric on top of a lining. So this is the lining I'm using, and then I'm just going to be sewing over the neckline area. This area that I'm marking out, the neckline area for the front, I am going to be sewing over these areas. That is what I'm just going to go ahead to do. And then after sewing it, this is what it's looking like. I know you can't see the thread, but I've already sewed it. I folded the front part into 2, and then from this bust point area I marked my original bust point, which was 8 inches, and then I came down by 1 inches. I just kind of elongated my bust point. You know, it was 7, so I now used 8 inches for it. I came down by extra 1 inches, making it 8 inches over here. So I just elongated it just for the purpose of my sleeve, so that it will fit, and then I cut it out afterwards elongating. You guys can see what I did here. The next thing I'm doing is I will sew over this area. That's the sleeve area for the front part. I'm going to be sewing the sleeve area, and also this other part, the sleeve area for the front part. So this is the sleeve we are trying to achieve. You guys can see how structured and slanted it is. I already did my own like that. I turned it to the front, and this is what it's looking like. You guys can see what it's giving. It's giving what the main picture is also giving. You guys can see the slanted areas. So that was just what I did, and you can see the neck. The neck, I did not want my own to be very up, yes, so I just made it to be a little bit lower. I didn't want it to be a very high neck. That's what I just did here. So this is the back part. I already did the normal routine. I added in my dart. I already turned it with the lining, and then I also sewed over the zipper allowance area. So this is just the back part. I'm going to be placing the front on top of my back. That's the front part on top of my back area, and then I'm going to be connecting it through the shoulder. So I just took a piece of it, and then I'm just going to be using the lining for the back part to cover the rest of the shoulder, just to give it a neat finishing at the shoulder area. So I'm just using my lining to cover it. You guys know this process, it's not hard. So this is what I did, and I'm just going to be sewing over it. I'm just going to be sewing over it, and this is what it's looking like after joining the shoulder areas together. So this is the back area, don't get confused. This is my zipper allowance area. I came up by 1 inches, and then I'm just going to be slanting to this other side, giving it a slanted curve. And the reason for this is just to avoid any zip bulge. So that was what I did here, just to avoid zip bulge, and I've already cut it out, so don't get confused. Next thing I did was to impute my body measurement. I imputed my bust measurement, which was 8 inches at this side, and I'm using my zipper area to get my center point. So I use this area where I'm going to be joining my zip to get my center point. You guys can see how curved the back is looking. I just did this process to avoid zip bulge at the back. So if you want to avoid a zip bulge, this is the process you are just going to use to avoid zip bulge. I then went ahead to connect the lines together. So we are done with the upper parts. I already went ahead to sew the side, as you guys can see, and I just turned it to the front. So for this gathered part, I already have my fabric here, and the width I'm going to be using, my original waist measurement is 24, so I'm just going to be plussing it by 2. So that's just what I'm going to be using here for my gathered area. I'm not just going to really give a full explanation of this gathers, because I don't want this video to be too long, right? If you can do gathers like this, is just the normal gathers you do, there's nothing special about it. So this area I'm marking is my gathered zip allowance area that I'm just marking over here. So I'm just going to sew over this area, and then I'll be sewing over here so that I'll be able to draw my gathered part, you get. So I already have a double stitch that I made over here, and that's what I'm just going to be using to draw my gathered for the front. This part I'm doing is the front area, right? So that's just what I'm doing over here. So I'm just drawing it consistently just to get my gathered, and when you are drawing it, you keep drawing it until you get your desired waist measurement. So my waist measurement divided by 2, this is the front part, is giving me 12 inches, but you guys know that there's allowance at the upper area that we already sewed, right? So that's what I'm just going to be using. So this length should be about 15 inches or so. So this is my desired width, like this is the wideness that I desire for the front, so I'm perfectly okay with it. I already went ahead to do the back of it off camera, so I'm just opening up my zipper allowance area, and I'm opening up the side that we sewed. The reason for this is so that I'll be able to join it to my gathered area. So I now folded the front into 2, and I'm going to be notching it. The reason why I'm notching it is to get the center front of it, right? That's the reason why I notched it, just to get the center front of it. And then my gathered for the front part of the dress, I am going to fold it. I'm not going to notch it. No, we don't want to cut the thread that we've done. I'm just going to use my chalk to chalk it down right there. Yes, and then I'm going to be adding it to the area that I notched at the front. So that will give me my center point. You guys know, whenever you are sewing, you just want everything should be perfectly okay. This is supposed to be at the center point, right? So if I don't do it like this, it won't be able to tell me my center point. So I'm going to be sewing these areas. I'll be sewing the areas, and after sewing, I went ahead to sew the back also, and that's what I just did here. So I'm just going to be closing down my zipper allowance area again. Yes, I will be closing my zipper allowance area after sewing the front and back. So for this part, you know, with you guys that we opened this before, yes, you remember that, right? So I'm going to close it down, close it up to the length of my gathered. So I just took in my waist measurement again, as you guys can see. I took in the waist measurement. So the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to elongate that chalk measurement to this gathered area, to the area that the gathered stop. So for you to know the kind of shape you are going to use, you guys just see what I did, just like an A-line shape. So after doing that, I turned it to the front, and there you have it. We are already done with our gown, so it just remains the zip to put, which I'm going to put. So guys, this is all for now for this gathered dress, and I'm going to be posting soon on how I made this corset over here that we're going to be attaching to our gathers. And if you have not turned on your notification bell, please hit that notification bell to be the first to know whenever I post, and also subscribe so that you'll be the first to know when I post this video. See you guys on my next video.